Hey class, and welcome to week 14. This is going to be our last lecture, which I'm very sad about that, but I guess we have to draw this class to an ending at some point. I will be probably recording at least another video for your review to prep you for the exam, but this will be our last new content for the class. All right, so let's get started. This week, our topic is going to be the postmodern detective. So before we can really answer that, we need to talk about what postmodernism is in general, which I'm sure all of you know the answer to that question, right? I hear crickets. Postmodernism, which I don't expect you to know the answer to this one, it's a reaction to modernism. So whereas modernism was primarily concerned with principles such as identity, unity, authority, and certainty, postmodernism is often associated with difference, plurality, textuality, and skepticism. It is also marked by a revival of traditional elements and techniques. And yes, this came straight from Wikipedia. Now, let me boil this down for you because it'll make a little more sense that way. So modernism was about identity, unity, authority, and certainty. All the things that America up until the 1950s, 1960s was really about. Okay, standard America. When people say the good old days, they're kind of talking about modernism here. Postmodernism, on the other hand, is about difference, plurality, textuality, and skepticism. And when it comes to skepticism, they're really being skeptical about all those things that modernism was about. Okay? So what does that mean? It's creating something new, inspired by something old, while questioning the original meaning. So it's a studied re-examination. Now, how does this have to do with what we're talking about in this class? Pretty much everything. Almost every detective we've looked at in this class has had some postmodern aspect to him. So first of all, what is a modern detective? The regular kind, the old school kind. A guy in a trench coat and fedora who solves mysteries for private citizens. We did not look at an example of that because, well, we just didn't. Or a cop who protects and serves and does it by the book. We didn't look at one of those either. Those are both old, been there, done that. Instead, we looked primarily at postmodern detectives throughout this class. So an impotent detective is a good example. Jake Gittes from Chinatown is a good example of that. And impotent, I mean someone who can't actually solve his case, not someone who has erectile dysfunction like Clyde Barrow. Different set of problems. I mean, he could be both. But in this case, impotent means someone who can't solve the case. A rogue cop like Dirty Harry, that meeting of justice and the law causing enough problems that he has to take the law into his own hands and break free of it. Rogue cop, Dirty Harry. A dirty cop like most of the cops in LA Confidential. A teenage or kid detective, Brick or Mystery Team have examples of that. And we will have an example of a kid detective in the movie we watched today. A newspaper reporter. Red Riding 1974 has a good example of that. Eddie Dunford. Also Zodiac, which we watched that last week. William Graysmith was an example of a postmodern detective. He was a cartoonist who then decided to continue trying to solve the case. That made him a postmodern detective. Or a perpetually stoned hippie burnout. The Big Lebowski is a good example, and Inherent Vice. Both of those, at first glance, you might not know that they're actually detective films, but you know, The Big Lebowski, The Dude, and Doc are both detectives. They're just really, really bad at it, which is part of what makes them postmodern. So our film for this week is The Nice Guys, directed by Shane Black, who also did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And also, as a writer, he almost single-handedly popularized the buddy cop subgenre. So he wrote Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2. So a lot of the rules that we talked about that buddy cops play by, Shane Black did that. So there'll be an element of buddy copness to the film we watched today. So our synopsis: two sort of private detectives in 1977 LA team up to find a missing girl who is somehow mixed up in pornography and politics. So this is a comedy with a very high body count. like most of Shane Black's films, that serves as a mid-1970s LA history lesson. So we already got the mid-1940s one in Devil in a Blue Dress, and then the 1950s one with LA Confidential. So now we get the sleazy 70s. So our questions for this week. Number one, how do both Holland and Holly March serve as postmodern detectives? So Holland is a private detective, Holly is his daughter. So how do they both serve as postmodern detectives? And why is Holland so bad at his job? He's bad at it. Number two, why does Jackson Healy break people's arms for a living? And then why does he team up with March? Why would anyone team up with the worst detective in the world? Answer that if you can. Number three, why doesn't Amelia want to be found? And then what is her connection to Misty Mountains? Misty Mountains is a porn star. You can tell by the name. Number four, how is the political intrigue in this film pertinent to both the 1970s and today? So enjoy this film. I know I did, and I'll probably watch it again because I love this film. Enjoy, and I will miss you folks, and I'll get you some content for your review and everything else, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. Sorry this semester went sideways. We did the best we could.